Hello everyone, welcome back to my dye series on dye fundamentals, those basic steps that are super important before, during, and after your dye. So this is our third video. The first one was over prepping and scouring our yarn. Our second one went over the Mordant process using an alum mordant on a wool skein. So if you've never done a mordant or you're unsure what a mordant is, I suggest that you watch that video first, because today we're gonna get to the fun stuff. We're gonna dye with dandelions. Dandelions are a great plant to start with when you're first learning how to do natural dyes for several reasons. The first is the process that we're going to use today. You can apply this to a lot of other common dyes that you'll use with flowers or leaves. Also, dandelions are relatively easy to find, right? And this is kind of the best part. You can use the flowers and the leaves to both make yellow. Even if you do not find any flowers and you just do the dye with leaves, you will still get yellow. How cool is that? So what do we need to do this dye? Basic dye supplies. Now remember, your dye supplies are not your kitchen supplies. So go to your favorite secondhand store, thrift store, and find a pot or a spoon that you will only use for dyeing. So I have here my pot, and it's about halfway, 3/4 of a way full of water. I have my dye spoon. I have my fiber. I'm gonna be using wool today because I'm basically a wool dyer. That's all I use. So I have it here soaking in water. If you just finished mordanting, you can take this straight from the mordant pot and throw it right into the dye pot. I mordanted this last week, so I have it soaking in warm water right here. And of course, I have my dandelions. So I'm just gonna take these and start adding them directly to the pot, cutting up the leaves into small pieces. Today I'm using frozen leaves and flowers. Well, they're kind of thawed now, but they were frozen. Normally with flowers, I will collect and then dry them, but I noticed with dandelions that when I left them out to dry, they would turn to fluff. With leaves, I would normally use the next day because you want to use them when they're fresh. But again, with dandelions, I found that if you freeze the leaves and the flowers, then that works just as fine as if you use them the same day that you collect. So, oop, that one doesn't look good. That one doesn't look good. Okay, so when you are gathering, just a few things to keep in mind. A few things to keep in mind. When you gather, you want to use multiple sources for where you're gathering your dye stuff, because remember that the ecosystem that you're gathering from needs it more than we do. And dandelions actually are a great pollinator. So I'm going to add all of these in. I have one more little bag. When it comes to ratio, with this dye, you can probably do equal weights of dye stuff to fiber. So if you had 4 ounces of leaves and flowers, you would use 4 ounces of fiber. I personally always think more is the better. So I like to do at least 2 to 1, 3 to 1, I think is perfect. But this is the thing about dyeing. The best thing for you to do is to do your own experience so you can find out what works best for you. Because the thing with rules in dyeing is that there's a lot of wiggle room with those rules. So I will wash these and use again. And I'm going to turn my heat up. I'm gonna bring this mixture to a simmer. It's okay if you boil it a little bit, but in general, I don't like to boil flower dyes because with some flowers, it can change the color or just kill it completely. With dandelions, a little boiling is okay. So I'm gonna turn this up. We're gonna simmer it / boil it for at least an hour or 2. You wanna do it until you notice the color in the water change to a nice deep yellow. And then we'll add our fiber. Okay, I like the way this looks. It's been a little bit over an hour. The color has changed to sort of this golden color. I'm gonna add my fiber. Now you can strain out your dye material before you add your fiber. That's kind of a personal preference. I prefer to add it in with the dye material just in case there's still a little bit of dye left in the flower or the leaf. My fiber is soaking in warm water. Again, if you just finished mordanting, you can put it in right from the Mordant bath. And I'm going to let this marinate and soak for at minimum a half an hour. I don't want it to boil at this point for sure because I have wool. You need to be careful with wool. The color is not going to change immediately. This is like a slow and steady dye. So like I said, at least a half an hour, and then at that point, when you pull it, is a color preference. Okay, I am happy with this color. Of course, this is personal preference, so you pull it when you like it. If you want, you can also just turn the heat off and let your skein sit in the dye pot overnight and then pull it the next day. The only thing left to do is to rinse. And when we rinse, you'll notice that all these little bits of leaves and flowers will just come right out. So off to the sink. You're just going to rinse until the water runs clear. The goal is to get rid of any of that dye that didn't actually absorb into the fiber. And it gives you a chance to pick out the leaves and flowers if you're like me and you didn't strain before you added it. Again, you do not need to rub or be rough with the wool. Just gently squeeze. Let it soak in the water until you do not see any dye left. All I'll have to do is hang this to dry. You can do this outside, but if you do it outside, do it in the shade. Or you can just hang it up in your shower, which is a great place for the extra water to drip out. And then once it's dry, you can either twist it up into a lovely little skein or cake it for your next project.